Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic, sir.
I love how we always ask that of each other, even though we've been gabbing for about a half hour before we actually hit the record button. But it does sound so professional, doesn't it?
It does. And to know that that conversation took place in our green room just means that, the consummate professionals we are when we're off stage versus on stage.
Right.
Yeah, completely different.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
I thought the charcuterie board in the green room today was especially delicious. Hats off to the catering staff for on our production.
I did just have a grilled cheese sandwich, so I am kind of right there with you. But my wife made it, and it was delicious. Anyway, what are we talking about today? What is this? Is this part two of a series?
Oh, yeah. Part two, the universal leadership qualities according to Socrates, Plato, all these other really cool guys.
Right. And I thought as we sort of ramped up, we better give people one more on-ramp into this this topic before we start going through these 8 or so bullet points that I uncovered as I was reading the Republic. So let me just quickly hit this, that, why are we talking about Plato? Why is Plato's book called The Republic, and why do we care? So I'm going to try to do this really fast because we need to get to the meat here and keep this a short episode. But Plato, why Plato? Well, let's just put it this way: Socrates tutored Plato, Plato tutored Aristotle, Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great, who conquered the known world and spread what we would probably now call Western culture, Hellenist culture, Greco-Roman culture, through all the continents pretty much. And we still in many ways live in that civilization that had its origins in Athens, where Plato was. So Plato's a good source for us to talk about a culture that has really lasted. And everybody on this listening audience wants a culture that lasts. That's the one thing that I think is kind of universal for people that are in our ecosystem, Mike, is we want a culture that works and lasts and is strong. So Plato's good for that.
Oh, I agree. I was a little skeptical at first, but yeah, you've got me on board here. And keep in mind, when we say all the people listening, we're talking to 2 people. So
I keep forgetting that. I'm sorry.
That's key. The other thing is, say you don't want to conquer the entire known world.
Right.
Maybe you just want to lead your department or your work group just a little bit better.
Yeah,
right.
And what
all applicable.
It's all applicable. Peter Drucker supposedly said, I was just talking with a client about this yesterday. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. You've been spending all this time planning and coming up with these elaborate, strategic planning sessions and so on and so forth. And the real heart of the matter is that it's the culture that's going to drive that. Do your people trust each other enough and buy into the culture enough that they can execute the doggone plan? So Plato and the foundations of Western civilization are a culture we still live in. If you want a culture that lasts, that eats strategy for breakfast, this is where it's at. And in fact, that's the lead into the second of the 3 whys. Why is this thing called the Republic? Well, Plato wrote this thing. It's a foundational text for Western civilization. I mean, bar none. He wrote it as if Socrates was having an after dinner conversation with some students and friends. And what is morality? What is justice is the question that they're tossing around. Are you really happier if you're a moral or a just person? And so he says, hey, let's come up with a fictitious city. We'll set all the rules. We'll come up with a plan for how this city operates and how they educate their citizens and their leaders. And let's use that as a model to see how morality, how justice works in that system, and use it sort of as an analogy for the human being. And so he goes into this. I'm painting with the broadest broadest brushstroke possible, but this republic that they come up with, this fictitious city, basically has a philosopher king at its head. And in fact, that's sort of the connection, is that he says that's sort of representing your rational part, your mind. And so the head is a lover of truth, a lover of wisdom, can perceive truth, and is just absolutely the right man for the job to run this republic. But he needs people to help him execute that plan and keep everybody on track. And so the heart is represented by these guardians who are also well educated and are totally bought in. They can't be distracted by pleasure or pain to stick with the mind's target, the philosopher king's target. And then that sort of leads you to the third group, which is the rabble, everybody else, all those, farmers and, pottery makers and so on, who are, they have appetites, right? And so if you think of it as a person, you've got the head, the heart, and the gut, the appetites, whether it's hunger or thirst or sex drive or whatever it is. If you let that rule the day, you're going to go toward pleasure. You're going to go away from pain, even if it's not the right thing to do. But the head knows what's right, and the heart can be courageous and passionate enough to keep you in that drive. And that's what's going to, the gut at its best is letting the head and heart lead. So there are PhDs, that have accidentally tuned in, who are rolling over in their chairs right now at how poorly I just described the republic. But that's essentially what we're talking about. The republic is you. The republic is supposed to represent us and what it looks like to be a moral version of a human, of a person.
Well, I think your summary was fantastic. And if we recall the title of our podcast,
right,
It Doesn't Take a Genius, we're not all that concerned about PhD heads exploding.
That's a good point.
So let's dive into universal leadership truth number 1.
Yeah. So why is this important? We have 8 characteristics here towards the end of the book that describe what he feels like, what Socrates feels like a philosopher king should have. So I'll read you the short paragraph, and it'll sort of point the direction here for these first 3 of the 8. He says, and this is Socrates speaking. Now, on the whole, I went on, the characteristics we should favor ought to remain the same, I suggest. I mean, we should prefer people with a high degree of reliability and courage, and also within reason, people who are very good looking. And then he goes on to say that that would be a person who's good and solid, people that are being good and solid. So these first 3 have to do with you being good and solid. And today we'll talk about a high degree of reliability.
Okay, yeah. When you showed me the list, right, the first thing I thought of when I thought of high degree of reliability was it's the foundational piece of trust.
Right.
So we talk about being a trusted leader, being a trusted advisor, being trusted, and so reliability, right? This in the simplest terms, it's right. We will follow through on what we say we will do.
Exactly.
And so this is not this crazy pie in the sky thing. It's simply, if you want to be thought of as a great leader, just follow through on what you said you will do.
Yeah, and think how this is, in some situations, this is life or death, right? I mean, even today, the word comes from an origin that sort of means, fastened or attached or gathered together. But it meant like people gathered together, like you can just see them like backs against each other, fighting off the enemy, or, attacking the woolly mammoth, or, whatever it would be. And even today, right, we have life or death decisions that are made at really high levels, safety recalls that have happened, or an emergency room and cooperating to save a patient's life, or any number of, every client I've ever had has safety issues that are trust factors. There's a reliability issue there that's at the core of what they do. And there are some smaller retail examples I can think of too.
Well, yeah. When you say that, the first thought that comes to mind is a SWAT team stacked up on a doorway.
Right.
So you've got a guy who's in charge of, the front, and you got a guy in charge with the left, the back, and you got a guy who's, left, right, and the guy watching the back.
Yep.
None of it works if any one of them aren't reliable.
It's a chain.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody has to be reliable. And so when you think about this, along that same vein, there's been some research where they're trying to figure out, okay, why do soldiers come back from war with PTSD and some don't? And one of the biggest factors that they've discovered is if they were in a unit they had high trust and they could rely on each other, very low incidence of PTSD.
Is that right?
And so if you were in a unit where you weren't sure if the guy who's standing watch was all that reliable, you could never ever turn your brain off. You could never relax, and then therefore you were much more likely to come back with issues because you could never rely on the person beside you, and therefore in a high tense situation like that, massive implications for mental health. So when you think about what are your people spending time and energy on, right? Or can they rely upon you for certain things? And some of these things could just be your demeanor.
Yep.
Right. I rely on you to come in the same mindset every single day. And we work with places where everybody watches the door to see what the chief decision maker of the day, what kind of mood they're in.
Yeah.
That will determine how we go about our work for that day. Right. Everybody avoid him. Don't go near him, or, oh, he's in a good mood. Now's the time to present some ideas and some proposals.
Yep.
And that unreliability, even in your demeanor and your mindset and your outlook on life, creates hesitation and disrupts the ability for your team to perform at a high level.
Yeah. And if you want to see that at a real visceral level, be with a client on paycheck day when something happens. It's a computer error. I've been in stores where it's a computer error and the checks were not deposited the day that they were supposed to be deposited, and immediate loss of trust, just everything coming unglued and unhinged in a lot of ways. They had to rely on, really their room and board at that point, right? They could not count on that coming through because of what had happened with the team at work. And I think that, again, I keep trying to drive it back to these, sort of life or death events, but it's more basic than that, right? Like a customer coming in the door and saying, man, Billy Bob is just such a nice guy, but he has never got my order right as long as I've been coming here. And there's a new place across the street. I think I'll try them out. Mm-hmm. It happens that quickly. He's a nice guy, but he's not reliable. He's not leading me as a customer.
Right. Well, and as a leader, you may create situations where you're seen as unreliable inadvertently.
Yeah.
So if I say, hey, listen, this was a great conversation. I'll follow up with you later in the week.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we had this talk on Monday. Thursday rolls around. I'm thinking he forgot. We're not going to have the conversation. It was just words.
Right.
He's not sincere. And in your mind, you're thinking Friday afternoon would still fall in the parameters of later this week. So even if I do it, right, I've now created this little bit of dissonance between what I was thinking you meant versus what you thought you meant.
Yeah. And it's that Plato's phrase of good and solid. Solid is something you can lean on, right? Mm-hmm. And it may be solid for you, but if you haven't told me that it's there and I can lean over on it, if it's dark enough that I can't see that thing to lean over on, I don't have any reliability factor with you at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the smallest thing, I'll circle back with you.
Yeah. Honor commitments is a lot of what this boils down to. And I'm parroting the thin book of trust there, which is something you and I have used with clients before, I know, and they have 4 elements of trust. And, it starts with, I can't remember if they use the phrase competence or proficiency, this idea that, can my boss do it? Can I trust my boss to do it? Yeah, but will he do it? And that's where
Right.
reliability comes in. Reliability is he will honor that commitment. So this is a will issue, and it probably is going to take some intentionality on your part, Mr. or Mrs. Leader, if this is not something you've thought through, to, keep a list, have some way of tracking whether or not you have made a promise that you need to go deliver on.
Right. Well, and I think, if you're going to make commitments, make specific commitments
Ooh, I like that.
so that people know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Right. I'll circle back with you versus let's get back together Wednesday at 3:00.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And if you, and it's okay, right? The whirlwind scoops you up as a leader. It's perfectly fine if we have to change it. Just let the person know that, hey, that meeting we were supposed to have Wednesday at 3. We're gonna have to find another time that works for us, and keep that commitment. So it's not like you have to act like the reality doesn't exist, but you do have to be reliable within that reality.
Yeah.
And people are understanding about that. So yeah, this one from a leadership standpoint is, I can see why it's universal, and I can also see why it's number one.
It's foundational. Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you need a little fuel to the fire here, your customers are experiencing the reliability factor that you're giving to your team. I mean, it's a culture that is cascaded down through the organization right to the end user. And I once had the experience of showing up at a shop that opened it was like 90 minutes later than their sign said they opened. And the guy had the audacity when I was asking him, how's business? And he said, well, we're a small shop and we're trying to keep people out of the malls, you just got to educate the idiots. And I'm thinking, educate the idiots? We can't even trust that you're going to be open. That's a reliability issue, right? That's for whatever reason that was a trust factor broken, and it spilled through the entire organization. So, so don't let your customers see it.
Right. Don't let your customers see it. Don't let the people you're leading. You and I were on a project many, many years ago, and we'd have a conference, and they would be showing us some slides, and everybody would be feverishly writing down everything on the slides because it was really good stuff.
Yep.
And then the person, leading the group would go, don't bother writing anything down. We're going to send you the slides.
Sure.
Never in all those years, never got the slides, and it wasn't the end of the world, but it took that little chink out of the reliability, the leadership qualities. They say that they never do it.
Yep.
What else are they going to say that they're never going to do?
Right.
And so that's such a small thing, but people are your people, the people following you are listening, they are paying attention, and they are counting on you for things big and small.
I've seen a lot of mergers go poorly. I've seen one merger go rapidly successfully. And the thing that was said to me was, they've kept every promise they've made.
Mm-hmm.
They were reliable.
Yeah, that's the trust dividend, as they say.
There you go.
Right. Things are faster, smoother, less expensive.
Yep. No trust tax. Love it.
No trust tax. Excellent. This was wonderful. I'm looking forward to the next 7. So let's see how excited our announcer is about all of us.
About the same, I guess.
Yeah, probably not a lot of change.
And there you have it, another session of contemporaneous extemporizing from Mark and Mike. I know it's redundant, but consider who we're talking about. As always, feel free to share the ideas you heard here. No right to reserve, no permissions needed. Thanks. See you next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.